everyone. We are live with another episode of Tales from the Tavern. I'm so excited that you all are here. We got a great group of guests with us tonight, as you can see. So I'm going to have everyone go around and introduce themselves, and I would like you all to just tell us a little about who you are and where we can find you on social media. So Adam, we're going to start with you.
All right. I am Adam Culbertson. I am the DM over at Microphones and Monsters, Cthulhu Mythos campaign story. And you can find us at mikesandmonsters.com.
Excellent. And thank you for coming back on. It's been a while since we've gotten to have you come and visit, so I'm excited to have you again. Speaking of somebody else who it's been a while that we've seen, Cam hasn't been on since we were on our last channel.
No, I know.
Hello,
all you lovely peoples. I'm Cam Day, at Daylight Pub 1066 on the Twitters. Most of you guys probably will know me through my company, Daylight Publications. We do a lot of stupidly overpowered, very narratively fun DM's Guild supplements. But most of you probably know us from Supers and Sorcery and Comets and Cockpits, our two big setting books that we have got going on. And yeah, that's about it for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on and coming to hang out again tonight as well.
Of course.
And another returning guest, Heath.
Hey, Heath Dobson. You can find me mostly on Twitter at the moment. Always trying to build community there, so I'm one of those ones that's pushing that. But DM of the upcoming Caesar Vodadari game, Into the Rage. It's going to be a pirates and gunpowder, black powder game. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we should have our Discord and website up very, very soon. So
that's exciting. Yeah. Very cool. Looking forward to that. Newcomer coming to visit for the first time. We have Matt with us. Matt, how are you?
Good. Hi, I'm Matt Arter. You can find me on Twitter at Dungeon Matter. I make 5th edition D&D class character options. They're pretty cool. Check them out sometime. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on and hanging out with us. And definitely last but not least, Tom is coming back again to visit.
Third time's a charm for Tales from the Tavern here. Yeah, I'm Tom Nelson. I go as Midwest Miniature Guy on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Twitch, pretty much anywhere social media has me. You can Google me and find me. I paint miniatures for gamers and collectors all over the country and the world, so that's my shtick.
Awesome. And if you haven't checked out his miniatures, highly recommend. They're super, super amazing. Yeah, he's so talented. Awesome. Well, I'm going to get us going with a question, but for those of you tuning in for the first time, the way that this works is the bulk of our conversation comes from questions from chat. So please feel free to drop any questions you have for our group right into chat, and we will make sure that we get a chance to ask them. We also have the Ask My Question Next using our channel points. You can use 1,000 channel points and we'll bump your question up to the top of the queue, so feel free to use one of those if you feel so inclined. I am going to start us off with a question, however, and this is based on our conversation that we had a couple days ago when somebody asked whether or not we were having a theme tonight. Somebody asked in our group chat a couple days ago whether or not there was going to be a theme tonight, and the answer that was given to us by Wolf's Blood was yes, and it's chicken and waffles. So I would like to know, what is your favorite pre-game snack or meal?
Shrimp lo mein.
Ooh.
that's every Saturday, yeah.
Whatever is in my refrigerator that I happen to have at that time.
That sounds about like me.
Or one of the Honey and Oats Nature Valley granola bars.
Oh yeah.
Those things are like crack.
They're so good.
I could eat a whole box.
For me, it's Taco Bell. I haven't outgrown being a teenager. Just greasy Mexican and Baja Blast.
That's pretty close. I like making chorizo and egg tacos before the game. It always really sets me up.
I'm coming to your house to game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, no kidding. I normally go, I guess, if I had my way, and I don't always get them all the time because I'm trying to lay off the salty stuff, but chili cheese Fritos. Nice big bag of chili cheese Fritos. That's kind of my go-to snack. I guess for actual meal, it depends on if Kim's making something or if I've made something. Normally it's something kind of simple because I don't want to be falling asleep, especially if I'm either playing or DMing. So
Yeah, that's fair.
keep it light.
Reflux Capacitator in chat says Matt's chili, so apparently you make a really good chili.
Yeah, I do indeed. I take a lot of time with it.
I'll send you my address. Just dry ice overnight.
Yeah.
Right?
over.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Good with
Yeah.
chili. Yeah.
You know what probably would be great with chili as a side? Chicken and waffles.
Well, we've got to get you to chicken and waffles.
It's
then.
true.
Sounds good.
It's true.
I often tell people, because I am a New Englander, chicken and waffles is really not a thing up here. Like, it's just nothing I've
Seafood.
ever had. It's seafood. Everything is
Seafood
seafood.
for us, yeah.
So yeah, I introduced somebody to New England clam chowder a couple years ago, and they were like, "How come I've never had this before?" Because you're
Well,
from
it's like
Germany.
I would meet classmates of mine growing up in high school who were like, I mean, yeah, lobster is expensive. We were kind of poor growing up, but we still managed to have lobster at least once a year. And they're like, I've never had lobster. Like, you live in, and your grandparents live on the seacoast of Maine, and you've never had lobster.
Right?
You're like, no.
Wow.
Just go out
I live in
and
the
catch a few.
Midwest. I live in the Midwest, so any seafood that we get over here is less than great. I would love for some killer East Coast clam chowder.
Come on out. We'll hook you up.
Oh,
Same here. I'm originally from the Seattle area, and I lived about a mile up from Puget Sound. So going and fishing down in the ocean was great. And then I moved out here, and the seafood not great, but man, having a walleye sandwich or something like that is fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've gotten a question from chat, so we're going to start with those. Ray Mayhem would like to know, who is a fellow streamer, player, or podcaster that you love and why?
Oh, can I answer this real quick?
Go for it.
Because I've got two. Number one is Josh Simons.
Yes. Yeah.
Great guy. He and I have gotten to know each other really well over the course of the last year or so. And then Shannon Roby from Advantage in Paradise RPG. Both those.
Yes.
They're just great all-around people.
Yeah.
I second Shannon wholeheartedly, and Diagnose Matt. Both of them address mental health openly, and we need to do that. And it's just refreshing, and I love them for it. Plus, they're just both so freaking adorable and fun to watch play.
Right?
Yeah.
Matt is great, too. Matt was
Yeah.
originally going to be in our Star Wars campaign, and then his school schedule didn't allow it, and we were so disappointed.
That would have been awesome. Yeah.
It's really hard to pick one, so I'll pick somebody who I've come to enjoy a lot recently is Maka the DM.
Yeah.
He's got some really good stuff. He's really, really funny to listen to. But you get a lot of really good insights as well listening to those stuff.
Yeah.
I unfortunately don't get to watch a lot of streams or listen to a lot of podcasts just because with teaching and especially this summer has been like crazy busy. But I definitely do like watching Shannon when she streams. She's actually a guest writer on Comments and Cockpit, so getting to work with her, and she's a teacher, so having that is a nice connection as well. And then I'm trying to think of someone else. I'm sure I'll come up with someone else, but yeah, I definitely need to do better in watching more streams and listening to more folks. I just need to make the time to do so.
It's tough. I always tell people, like,
I'm in the same boat.
yeah, if you can't tune in when they're live, at least, if you could try to catch the VODs or whatever, I mean, it's tough. There's so many amazing people out there to watch. I personally, for a podcaster, I really love, on Twitter, he runs two Twitter accounts, one for the podcast and his own, TT Benjamin, who is the DM for Lawful Great Adventures. And they just finished their first campaign, and I was like in tears at the end of it. It was such a great story. He just spins a really, really good tale. You know, I was super invested in the story and the characters, and he just happened to have a great group of people that all just played really well together. And I loved every second of that podcast. As far as other like streamers and players, I mean, God, there's so many, and I've met so many incredible people through doing this stream that, like, if I had to pick one, it would be super hard. Like, it is super hard. So, I mentioned Big B's earlier. I think he's a ton of fun to play with. Before we went live, I was talking about Big B's, and he's just a lot of fun to play with. He's a great character, just an all-around really nice person. I would play with him any day. So,
yeah, I think for me, again, I've met a lot of people since I started this and got to connect with a lot of people. But my favorite right now, or so far, it's hard to pick, but Nico Rodriguez from A Fool's Quest. He has a completely different DM style from me. I guess I kind of have a lazy approach because I work better in like improv and not prepping, where he like has this like fully fleshed out story from the beginning, all written down. And I've actually got to work with him on another show, and I like his method, and I could never do it.
I think one that came to mind though while folks were talking is I never got to be a critical role person, just because by the time I started getting more involved in RPG stuff, like they were so far into campaign 2, I was like, I don't have the time. But I have been watching Xandria Limited, and I have been like now hunting down more of Abria's streams, watching her DM.
Oh, yeah.
I love her DMing style so much, and watching Matt get to be an absolute chaos gremlin is hilarious.
Getting to see any like forever DM play, and then in addition with a DM who's just got so much energy and is so positive is really awesome.
So I've really been, because like now I feel like I'm like, oh, I actually can watch it now. Every Monday I set to, because I'm not staying up till 10 o'clock at night on Thursday to watch it. So every Monday I watch, and it is super fun to spend the afternoon watching and getting.
I keep saying Abria is a master class in DMing. I mean, I literally take notes, and it's not notes of the story. It's like, oh, that technique's awesome. It's absurd how much I feel like I've learned from her in 4 episodes now. That's
Sure. She's all over the place this summer. She's everywhere.
It's the summer of Abria.
Yeah,
it is summer of Abria.
I will say another person that comes to mind that I think everyone should really check out is there's a group called Friends at the Table. I don't know if you guys heard it. Austin Walker is the DM. They go through a lot of different RPGs, even bouncing around with some of their own kind of systems. But he is just a phenomenal GM, and they take so much time to really weave an interesting story together. And they're really, really worth a listen. They do a bunch of different little ones, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Nice. Okay, well, we've got another question that just came in from chat. So as long as chat has written down everybody's name that we just said, so you can check all of these people out. The next question comes in from Reflex Capacitator, and this is a great one for all of you since you all DM in some capacity or another. If any of you use modules or fully fleshed out stories like Adam was talking about, how do you fight railroading?
So something I do, because I very rarely use any of the hardcover adventures, but what I have gotten into the habit of doing, especially for 5e, is taking them and pulling out the big plot points and then letting the rest of it be very much a sandbox. I'm getting ready, because once my game ends that I'm doing, my Eldraine game, my Tuesday night group decided to roll randomly for a setting and randomly for a hardcover adventure. So we're doing Tomb of Annihilation in Theros. So I'm having to retune and rework Tomb of Annihilation to fit in with, like, obviously the high cosmic Grecian kind of vibe of Theros.
Nice.
Yeah, that's wild.
And so a lot of it, I'm like going through and just pulling out like the major plot points, and then just kind of letting them go nuts. Something similar to my Sunday group is I'm going to take Storm King's Thunder and put Storm King's Thunder in Eberron, which just feels like a really good fit. And so I'm doing something similar where the other day I was going through like reading, pulling, okay, this point, this point, this point, but then letting them find it in a very much more organic way of like, you're wandering around the continent, you'll find something eventually, and then when you do, maybe you'll hit something, and then go from there. Because I hate railroading. I just like stuff to formulate organically. It's more fun that way.
Yeah. Funny that you brought up Storm King's Thunder, because I actually turned Storm King's Thunder into like a 007 kind of style, just because of like one part that's in it. I kind of changed the casino part. But mostly what I do is I have an in-game plot point that I want to get to, and then I completely play off of the players at that point just to get to that spot.
I end up trying to figure out what really matters, and then don't get hung up too much on the details of it. If it's an important, for example, like you're talking about with plot points, if it's an important plot point that they end up in this tavern, you know that tavern is in downtown, and the party's like, we want to go uptown. We're feeling good. Like, I like it. Move the tavern uptown.
Yep.
It does not matter as long as they get there. Or if you even want to go in a more freewheeling direction, maybe there's a different tavern, but what they're there to encounter, what they're there to find, put that in their path wherever they go. Don't force anything on them. You can drop, breadcrumbs for them, little trail, but if they decide to ignore that, then they're invested in something else. They're interested in something else, and you should pursue that and try to integrate those things in there as best as you can. Because as long as they're having fun, that's really good.
For me, I start each session with a page of notes. Here's what I'm planning. I'm good to go. And I'll have like, this must happen, and this must happen. Everything else in between, my hooligans don't ever go where they're supposed to. And I swear to God, sometimes they intentionally are like, we fuck with them. Excuse my language. But let's go this way. And so I'm just like, I'm so used to now coming in with my notes and just being like, okay, you go where you want and we'll have fun with it. I've been guilty of too much sandbox and I don't think there needs to be rails per se, but there should be bumpers that at least you hit something, you bounce back into the direction of the plot.
Or repercussions.
Yeah,
there's always going to be something. I ran a 12-year campaign for 2nd edition D&D for a bunch of different players, and each one of them, I mean, some of them had different characters, because either a character would die off, and like 50 to 60 years passed in-game. So there was a lot of stuff that was going on, so there would be, new players coming in, or new characters coming in from old players, or whatever. And that whole storyline was basically, what do you guys want to do? What are your characters' intentions? So I never had, I had like my set big bad evil guy that I wanted them to defeat at the end, hopefully. But I never ran any modules or anything like that for that game, because everything that I had was self-written. And I would actually even have written out journal or diary notes from scribes that were chronicling the adventures. So, and I would send them out. The group that I'm playing with right now, I did run a module based. It's a fifth ed game that I'm running, but I grabbed this old 2nd ed module just because it had exactly what I wanted, and I just moved everything to 5th ed stats, and kind of then let them go. I never really railroaded them too much. I told them where some stuff might be, and then let them choose what path they wanted to take, and that seemed to work out pretty well for them. And I do have to do a quick shout out to Marshall, who says that he can't wait to play D&D because he's here in Minnesota with me. He's actually one of my wife's friends from high school, and I'm going to be teaching him on August 7th, so I can't wait to run him through what I have planned.
Nice.
That's super excited. So now you have to tell us everything you're going to run him through.
I'm thinking it's actually going to be a murder mystery based in Baldur's Gate.
Oh, fun.
Ooh, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
That's super
Gotta
fun.
love it.
A murder mystery in Jersey. Excellent.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
I'll say from the published modules, most of them, I mean, they're okay. I've got quite a few of them, but honestly, the one I keep going back to is Curse of Strahd.
It's so good.
That's a good
It
one.
is fantastic, and you can turn that very sandboxy with, again, a few guardrails. Just a few, but there are certain parts where you're like, you're not ready. Let me put up the big flashy no.
That werewolf cave, real good, real fun.
I like letting players figure those things out sometimes on their own. Be like, what you're about to encounter is not everything in the world is your level. You know, I like it when players go in that cave and they find like a sleeping adult dragon and they're level 3 or something like that. Then it becomes not how do we fight this dragon, how do we get out?
Right.
How do we survive? And that's fun. You know, you don't have to wake up that dragon for them to be engaged and for them to have a situation to deal with.
Monty Cook wrote in Dungeon Craft. I used to love Dragon Magazine. I'll never forgive WotC for killing it.
Wish they still did those.
I honestly, what they do now is just ads.
Yeah.
But he wrote back in the day, he wrote a Dungeon Craft article where one of his pieces of advice was just tell players up front, sometimes the right answer is run away. You're going to meet things, you're going to go, and then you're going to realize, ooh, maybe not. Okay, then get out. Go. And so I always start every campaign now with that advice of, look, I will give you warnings. There'll be signs that maybe not, but sometimes the right thing to do is just either talk and try to figure out a way to negotiate it or, save yourselves, or just run.
Yeah.
And, some of the best scenes are when the players are like running away and, something's chasing them.
Yeah.
It's so hard to make that artificial too. To get the actual tension, it's kind of a hard thing to force without them knowing that you're forcing them. But when it comes from their own actions, their decisions, and they're like, "Oh no, we did this.
Mistakes were made."
Yeah.
Delicious.
It's the Han Solo running down the hallway finally, and then getting to the hangar bay with all the troops and shooting one, and then running back. That's kind of, I love it when some of my players have done that. Of just, they're chasing after the one kobold with the sandwich or whatever. They're trying to take him out, and they get to like the giant cavern where all the rest of the kobolds at, and they have to make a decision: do they run through or do they run back? Yeah.
Good.
I think one of the big things I've been finding with the hardcovers, especially doing like my conversions to different settings, is that I almost wish that when you bought a hardcover, it was almost 2 separate smaller books. One with the quest, and then they always seem to have like a gazetteer attached to them for specific locations. So almost as if it'd be like, instead of getting one giant book all together, you got, here's the adventure, here's the gazetteer. You can have either or if you want to use them. Especially like with Descent into Avernus, I think was one of the ones I started running through. Like I tried to run by book, but I got so frustrated with it because there were so many different little plot points that just went everywhere. And I was like, I gave it to I was like, okay, I'm not gonna run this anymore. I gave it to a friend in our group. You run it. I can't because I got so frustrated with it.
Yeah, a lot of the modules are they have ADHD. It's the only way I can think to describe it. But you're right. What do we do here? And it's like, well, you have 12 options.
I think Ryan the Frostbane, I think, did a good job of that with like, here's the different narratives in the 10 towns. Here's how they all tie together eventually. I think that's where I saw it done really well. Also, I bought rhyme because I had a bunch of friends that worked on it. I was like, I want to support my friends.
Oh yeah. I like what you were saying. To touch on things that you said and that Heath said is I love Curse of Strahd as a module. And with all of these modules, what I like to do, because I run a very homebrew world, is I like to just use them for inspiration. You don't have to touch on the specific plot points as much as the flavor. And Barovia and the kind of domains of dread. Strahd as a character, these flavors are so rich that you can pretty much do whatever you want with them, and they just give you a tool set if you really kind of dissect them. And I like to, like you said, Heath, you have a page of notes of this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen. The way that I like to DM is normally I'll just have like one thing that has to happen, and these are things I would hope to happen, and and then I'll name like one or two things I would dread to happen, but I stay mindful of them throughout as we go. And then I let the players kind of make their own nightmare out of any situation, which I love my players, but they tend to do that.
Yeah.
That's my approach to. I hate the alignment system entirely, but I always tell them actions have consequences. You do what you want, but then you're the one that's going to make what happens happen.
100%.
I have a buddy of mine, Ryan Langer, Realmwarp Media on the Guild. He did his book with a couple folks called Realigned, which is kind of a reimagining of the alignment system, and it had three different systems, and one of them was like a reputation system where you do good things, good thing happen. You do bad thing happen. Because I get fed up with alignment sometimes, because we have one. This is the guy I was telling you guys about earlier. The Thor cosplayer always plays lawful good human paladins. It gets very boring, very quick. And meanwhile, I'm over here like, I'm the lawful evil hobgoblin paladin. And he's like, you can't be a lawful evil paladin. I'm like, yes, I can.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, it's like now you can.
Yeah.
All day.
So, I actually went out of my way with my Season of Odari game I'm about to do that. I took the lawful good, they're zealot priests, but I'm making them one of the bad guys. And there people are like, wait, lawful good is that? I'm like, yeah. They are absolutely 100% lawful good, but they're horrible people. Their view of this, worship, they tolerate no one else's perspective on it. And yeah, I'm having fun with it. And my players are like, why do these priests keep showing up in all the other countries we go to? I'm like, I don't know. What? Start looking into it.
It's weird how that works.
Yeah.
Out of the two campaigns that I run, one of them they play a group of they've joined like an underground rebellion in a very much a Star Wars versus rebellion versus the Empire kind of way. And they this whole time are like, we're the good guys, but there's this blonde-haired, golden-armored cleric of Bahamut who is constantly after them, and from his point of view, I mean, they're the worst. They're tearing everything down, and I like the kind of Star Wars idea of there's good and evil on both sides, and that's very much a theme in their campaign, and it's very fun to play with. So I love when you talk about that idea of like why do they keep popping up? That's really good.
Well, we can't decide anymore what is alignment. Is it a mechanic or is it a role-playing tool? They've put it in 5th ed in this sort of middle ground, and it doesn't work for either. You got to pick one. If alignment matters mechanically, then you've got to keep it in there, and protection from good, protection from evil, all those things matter, and the paladin has to stick to lawful good, whatever. If you want it to be a story-driven thing, then fine. Just move it over with, plot or with your various ideals, bonds, everything, and just turn it into what is your view of the world and your morality. This hybrid to me, it fails. And I think it's something D&D's been moving away from, and they need to finish.
I like to view it as less of a mechanic and more of like an interesting check-in. I don't hold my players to that. I think people are really complicated, and we could be a little mix of everything sometimes, and sometimes that's where you kind of end up neutral if we're looking at the whole themology of it. But if sometimes I could look at a player at the beginning of the campaign and we'll be like, just for funsies, what do we think that kind of alignment is with him now? And later on we'll check it, but we don't hold them to any type of like ruling or system like that. Like anything that's real tight. I've had one player that one day was incredibly nice and incredibly supportive and everything you would expect of like a compassionate, good character. And the next day he had like cut off somebody's hands. And people are complicated. And then I think that alignment, like you said, should either be mechanical, to where it's part of the rule system, or else it should just be a completely loose narrative thing that doesn't have to be tied down to anything. I really agree with that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like alignment is a thing that either it has to matter completely or not at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've basically made it that way. The mechanics around it are almost gone, but there's still just a few little pieces that hang out, and you sort of look and you're like, what? Why? And, this doesn't matter to anything else, but okay.
Yeah.
It's like the dregs at the bottom of your coffee. You're like, what are you doing here? Go.
Right. To me, the only things that should be aligned are, the good planes, the bad planes, and the creatures that come from there. But it should be simple. You're good, you're evil, you're lawful, or you're chaotic. It's not the combination. It's not which do you embrace with your where you're from, and move on. And now we can make that whatever that demon or that celestial, whatever, that personality of it reflect that one piece. And I think that's a better tool than trying to use the nine points.
So. We need a 56-point system. Then I'll be happy. Not till then.
All right. Let's see. So another question that we got is from let's see. Oh, okay, down here. This one comes from in chat. It's From Afar podcast. It's Goovy behind the name. So hello, Goovy. Goovy would like to know, what has been your favorite villain to put in front of your players, or vice versa, what has been your favorite villain to face as a player?
Ooh, can I answer this one?
Go for it.
So there's a couple of DMs that I like to gather around and with crazy, evil, bad stuff for our players, and one of them helped me with this one. We call it Eating the Evil Muffin. And so we decided to take, I think it was like the Bane Lich or something like that from 2nd Ed, and we turned them kind of into like the Nazgul, my campaign world. And so they were they could cast I think it was called like a cold fire missiles or something like that. So but instead of them being like D4s for each missile, they were D10. Oh yeah, they were super nasty. They had like a cold touch that they could do as well, and if they dropped you down below so much, they could turn into a white. This is just stuff that we started kind of making our own monster out of for the most part. But the big bad evil guy could create these things. And the way that he would create them is he would take infants and turn them into these Nazgul type things. So once the spirit of this Nazgul thing was defeated, it would kind of fold. Their robes would fall down onto the ground, kind of like a Jedi after going to the Force. But there would still be something squirming in the robes, and the players would then open up the robes and find a baby in the robes, but a baby that radiated evil. And having a paladin and a cleric, both good aligned at the times we were playing 2nd Ed, in the group, it was their moral conundrum of, do we kill the child or do we try to save the child? I'm going to cast, whatever this spell on it, and detect magic, detect evil, detect, whatever spell curse. They would try a bunch of different things, nothing would happen because is it the baby that's evil, or is it something is it the aura around the child evil? And
Yeah.
the cleric himself basically said, I'm... Reflex says, that's horrifying. Yeah, I know, it was great. I loved using them. But it made a great moral dilemma for players. Because some of the players, one of them happened to be a lawful evil character, and he's like, I'll kill the kid. And that made the cleric and the paladin, who were kind of leaning that way, go, no, we're not doing that yet. So that was one of my favorite kind of, not the big bad evil guy, but definitely his minions to send out against the party. And they'd show up like every 6th or 7th session, they would just appear. They would, because they were tracking them. And yeah, so that's one of my big ones.
I would think, because I don't get to play very much, but one of the times that I did play in a very continuous campaign, it was we did an orcs and goblins game, and our DM was, there are these like 2 kids in our group who are obsessed with Forgotten Realms, so they'd never do anything outside of Forgotten Realms, which got kind of boring real quick. But the one game we got to play, okay, we're gonna do orcs and goblins. We'll be in the Underdark, and I did this orc warlock who was very much inspired by Gul'dan from World of Warcraft. It's like very creepy, very hunched over, and he was a warlock of Dagon. And over the course of the game, we were gradually finding out that my patron, the Dagon, was like leading us to him. And so I renounced my patron. Like I took my horns, I snapped them off my head. And I started multi-classing into Barbarian. So I was a Barblock, which was awesome, because I'd fire off all my spells. I'm like, oh, the Warlock can't do anything. Takes off, like, robes ripped underneath. So we ended up, at the end of that campaign, we actually killed my patron. Like, we hunted this giant eldritch monster down, and it was this huge, epic showdown. It was made better by the fact that we were using this really fun little book, which was like 200 extra wild surges there for our goblin sorcerer. His name was Snicket, the luckiest goblin alive. And it was just ridiculous stuff, like you start Ralphing delicious cream cheese, or you turn into a mandolin that you can only transform back if you pluck G minor or something. So the one he rolled when he got his magic surge and we're fighting Dagon was everything within a 100-foot vicinity becomes coated in thick, creamy peanut butter. So we're like, yes, epic, we're fighting this giant sea monster, and then just everything's covered in peanut butter. So we're trying to fight it. Maybe slightly less epic. But then right now in my Eldraine game, because it's so like high fantasy fairy tale, I'm gearing it up for them to like. Very rarely have I ever used dragons, and I'm trying to use them more. And they're getting ready to face this like ancient red dragon, who's sort of like one of the sort of an ancient knight who was a dragon, and it just feels very fairy tale-esque, and I'm loving it. And my group is eating it up, and they're all analogs for Knights of the Round Table. And I was like, it's so simple. Just he's a one-dimensional evil bad dragon. And there's just something lovely and simplistic about that I'm like, I don't have to think about his motivations. He's just an evil dragon. And they're like, we're going to go kill the evil dragon. I was like, so it'll be interesting. Also considering that there's all these little connections between my fiance's backstory and the dragon. And she was like, I don't like you for doing this. And I was like, well, too bad.
You should have written some more. Yeah.
Well, her story was cool because she used to never play D&D, and she's slowly gotten more and more into it. She's gotten more and more comfortable. So each game we've played, her characters have gotten more wild. So this game for Eldraine, she's like, I want to be a genie. I was like, okay, we can do that. So we rolled that she was thrown out of the elemental plane of fire for wanting to be good. So she looks like a 6-year-old with flaming hair, just wandering around Eldraine, exploring on her giant fox, whereas she's actually like 500 years old.
Oh my
but
gosh.
they've discovered that like the volcano that she created when she landed on the plane, the dragon used the ore from her meteor to create one of the ancient artifacts of the ancient kingdoms that he's trying to use to control people. And we just revealed that last session. She was like, I don't like you. She was very frustrated with me after that reveal. But
I go the other way. I like to make I like it when things are very pointed and straightforward, but I like making things complicated, like an onion, like layers deep. Like like I like spinning that web and having it come back years later and they're horrified. One of my players, like you were talking about the barbarian warlock or warlock barbarian,
Yes.
but one of my players is my fiance, and she's been playing a barbarian forever. And she was always like, I will never multi-class. I will never multi-class. That's a lot. I don't need that. And then something happened, and they ended up in a bad spot. And she was approached by Asmodeus, Lord of the Nine Hells himself. And he said, I will save you, and I will save your party. I will take them out of this situation if you sign this contract to be my wife. And so she signed it, and part of her now warlock pact that she has with him is like this big ruby ring on her finger. And it's gotten increasingly complicated, but I like making it deeper and deeper because he started telling her things that were true that like her family had kept from her forever. And she's becoming increasingly distrustful of everybody else. And he's not lying to her. The Lord of like deception and devils and all this is the one person who's telling the truth to her. And that pain, that type of emotional pain has been super, super rich. But she's gone from full out going into a rage to trying to hold back that rage as much as she can to do spells. And that's been really, really interesting. But I like that emotional depth. Going to big bad guys, like we were talking about, I have one who in that same campaign, they are chasing after these, shards of demonic energy, whatever. They're chasing after this item, and they meet this duke, and they don't know if they can trust him, and they make an insight check on him, and it's kind of a middle number, and I was like, you're not sure, but they rolled fairly high, and so they thought that he was just okay, and then like a session later or something, they had to go somewhere, and they passed through that duke's area, and he's like, hey, take these healing potions with you, be safe on your journey. And come 40-something sessions later, he ensnares them into this awful trap, which almost kills all of them, ends up with her signing that contract with him, or with Asmodeus. And there's this awful reveal of we trusted you so much because you gave us healing potions and we didn't question things too much. And just that deep betrayal. I love my players, and I love watching my players hurt themselves emotionally. There's a lot of tears in our game, but there's a lot of laughter too.
Yeah, my favorite one that I've done so far, it was a combination of like two creatures, one of them being the King in Yellow, and a homebrew creature that basically is a building, and it collects bodies and uses the bones to build it. But they were inside of this house, and they didn't know that the house was this creature, and it shifts and changes to mess with their minds. And then of course the King in Yellow that they encountered at another point could completely read their minds and learn their past, everything like that. They learned how to block him from having that control over them, but they had to go through the house creature or tower in this instance, as it evolved. And so the King in Yellow and the beast, this creature, were working together, and it was able to change the rooms. Like they'd walk through a door and it would just completely go to something in their past that was very emotional in their backstory and character building and everything, to really hit them emotionally and try and drive them crazy, to the point that one of them was about to give up and one of them had to save him and everything, but he was gonna just let himself burn alive. But by the time that they got to the King in Yellow, like emotions were high, tension was high, anger, desperation, and just one of them just ready to give up. And it was an awesome battle, just combining that together.
Cool. Very cool.
For me, my favorite one, I did the dual Hollis campaigns back in 3.5, and so these two groups were playing parallel games. What they did affected each other, but they both came to really hate the head of one of the crime groups, but they were terrified of him. His name was Menon Balakazar. Monty Cook created him, brilliant, absolutely awesome character. And at the end, when they finally confront him, he's just a normal person. He's a crime boss who terrifies everyone because he has all these people, and he does have some artifacts and things that make him a bit dangerous. But he had no class levels. He was just this old decrepit man that would just order, kill the 20 children. I don't care. And when they all got done and discovered this, they're all like, "You mean we could have killed him?" And I'm like, I mean, you would have had to get through his protectors, but yeah, basically you could have killed him. His children were more dangerous than he was.
Wow.
I loved it. And they were just like, but I got to play him so over the top and menacing. They would meet him, and like the players would all be like, "Oh shit.
The fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they thought, because he was the major crime lord in this huge city, and so they just assumed he was this. He was fantastic, and he gave me
how to
so
use
much
word of mouth.
smooth chewing.
Do you guys as players and DMs go in more for like the high epic moments or like the strong emotional reactions?
I like
more like the how do you want to do this versus like the that's not really your father moments.
I don't think you can play this without embracing both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. There's got to be a little bit of both in my game. You know, it's one. So we took a break from our 5th ed game because a lot of people were either on vacation or they were off doing other stuff for the summer, and we won't get back into playing until October. And the way that I didn't leave it so much on a cliffhanger, but I left it with Talos, the storm god, had come in to the basics of the game that I'm running. It takes place 10 years after the Lost Mines of Phandelver. So we're still in Phandalin and parts of the Sword Coast. But one of the Firbolg cleric, she is a cleric of Talos. And there was a plague that was running rampant in Phandalin. And she hadn't really been paying too much attention to what Talos wanted her to be doing. And so when she was starting to call on healing powers, rejecting her. Or making very little, like slowly healing somebody, whatever. So he finally confronted her out. She ran off into the woods to have a prayer meeting with him, basically. And his avatar shows and says, "You're either going to, start doing as I'm telling you, find the acolyte, destroy certain things that I want you to destroy, or you're just going to be, you're nothing. I will take everything from you." And as he's having this confrontation with her, and they're talking, a storm is moving in off the coast, heading to Phandalin, and all the rest of the players, because they don't know where she is, they're all trying to save some of the townsfolk and whatever, and they're just seeing this ginormous storm moving into Phandalin, with giant waves, things like that. And finally she breaks down and the character is crying and she says, "Yes, I will do what you want. Just save the town." And as she says that, he nods, and lightning starts striking all these different houses in Phandalin. And instead of destroying the houses, he's healing the people from the plague. And he says, "And now you're mine." And the storm goes back out into the ocean. And that's where we ended it. And so now it's going to be, a few months later, what, and I've sent them emails of, what does your character want to do? What, all things over the course of these next couple of months. And I've gotten some really good stuff back from a few of them, and I'm waiting to hear back from a few others. But, one of them's, she's looking for, she's a Dragonborn ranger who is searching for the group of orcs that destroyed her village, but she's also looking for her father that she never met. And so little hints have been dropped that he might be in Cormier. And you might want to go there, but then we need you here, come back. So now she's got two different paths. Where's she gonna go? So it should be interesting to see what they decide and how they want to tackle some of these other issues that are starting to come up.
That's fun. I really love the dramatic cliffhanger when you have a moment like that and end a session there, and then in between sessions, your players their gears are turning, they're talking to each other, they're talking to you, they're still engaged, they're still playing, yet they're not at the table, and I think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
I think for me, when I was still gaming with my group at home, they were very much more most of them were like video gamers. They were sort of video gamers first, then role players. So they were in it definitely more for like let us kill things and get the loot. And not so much the more intimate role play moments. But when I started doing with some other groups, it definitely got to be, there was a lot more intimate, very emotional moments. And being that I was a theater kid in high school, it really let me kind of flex role play muscles and really help the other folks. There's a moment in our Eldraine game that we're doing where they had to go to one of these kingdoms to find, because each of them, there was originally there's 4 players, but one of them runs 2 characters. But each of them is from one of the 5 kingdoms of Eldraine. But they need to get the one from the 5th kingdom. So they were going to the city to find the 5th one. And they find the 5th one, and they're like, oh, she's kind of this like savage warrior woman. And then they realize, oh, she's actually a werewolf. Okay. And then they sort of capture her, kidnap her, drag her off, and then sort of later that night, they kind of like, they find out she's like not much older than like 16 or 17, and she it was this really emotional moment where I was kind of role playing this kid who, her mother was bitten by a werewolf, her mother couldn't afford to live, so a wizard paid her mom to take the daughter and raise the daughter as like a science experiment. And sort of, it was this really very tough scene for me to role play, but also for my group, because my group, this is the one with my fiance, her brother, and then my 2 other friends, they were like having a hard time because they were like, this is really tough. Like, this is hard. And then they're kind of realizing this quest we're on is to get this next queen of Eldraine, and we're dealing with a kid who is not even 20, doesn't know how to control her werewolf powers, was abused, and is dealing with all these. And it was just very sweet and very powerful to see how they rolled with it and kind of like took her character in. And at the same time, they're also one of the other dragons they've met, who currently is in their regular form. I had written it that dragon had just sort of, before they found this dragon, had undergone transition surgery to sort of unlock this magic that he had. And they were sort of interacting with her and my fiance comes from a very Catholic family. So kind of slowly trying to introduce her to more of that kind of stuff. And she's been really awesome about it, which is great. And just sort of them interacting with this character of Safan, sort of trying to respect their pronouns, trying to understand what they've gone through, what they're experiencing. And that was also really powerful. And I think I've come to enjoy more of these really small, intimate moments with my players rather than the big epic stuff because it lets their characters open up, and you see the players open up more, and it's kind of, at least those are two moments that really stood out to me because like even I was like, okay, hold it together. Like you put on the How to Train Your Dragon soundtrack, I'll start crying because I'm just like, oh, it's so beautiful. So those moments were like, no, can't cry, can't do it.
Got it. Yeah,
I'm right there with you.
Little verklempt.
Luna, you didn't tell us you had a familiar.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was going to joke the executive producer showed up.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Because it's break time, so
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's time for us to take a break, and she wanted to make sure I knew that. So
yeah.
this is if you have ever followed or seen any of my Instagram posts, this is Gamer Cat Molly, and she is my familiar. I've had her since she was 6 weeks old, and she turned 16 this year. So. Yeah, so she's my baby. So with that, we are going to take a quick break so that everybody can get up and stretch their legs and refill drinks and things like that. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. We've got a few more questions already in the queue. But if you think of anything that you would like to ask our guests, feel free to drop it in chat, and our moderators will make sure that we get it. So we will see you in just a few. And we're back. Hello, everybody. How are you?
Hello.
We were having a very good discussion behind the scenes, and I was like, I had to wait for just the right moment to be like, we gotta come back, guys. So we're gonna dive back in with a few more questions. Let's see. The next one that we have actually comes from Apache1222. He would like to know, since you are all DMs, what is your favorite NPC that you have come up with so far?
Oh my god. Okay. He literally was invented last week for my Eberron game. His name is Darian Zortel. He's a beholder who owns a winery in Korenberg.
I love him already.
And he has a fabulous handlebar mustache, a single monocle for his big eye, smaller monocles for all of his eye stalks.
Yeah.
And so my group was like, okay, we got to go, because they were sent to this city, and they're like, crap, okay, before we go to the person we have to meet here, we have to go and buy the wine that they like, that other person told us. So they go to the winery, and they're just like, who's in there? And they're like, oh, you see a beholder. And they're like, and he goes, good morning, everybody. Welcome to my winery. I am Darian Zozel. My pleasure to meet you all. And one of them in the group is a Horizon Walker ranger. So he's used to like bamping through portals. He goes, nope. You just hear him loading a crossbow in the back. He's like, nope, not screwing it. Nope. But he has by far become my favorite NPC just because he's so ridiculous. And he has so much class. He's just a classy beholder, classy guy.
For me, it's in Vodari. I actually did a couple of prelude campaigns. My game is actually 100 years past the book itself for what's coming in the stream. But I said it. I just wanted to get experience in the world, and I made this just flamboyant sea elf bard who's always singing. He's always getting himself into trouble, but he jumps and he dances and he engages and blah. And so then a lot of the players we're in the preludes. Now moved to the stream, what's going to soon be public. And so they're sitting there, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, you got to the city, and you hear this outstanding music being played in this square. And I literally saw one player go, and like the others are like, what's? And, slowly the players who knew who he was figured it out, and they're like, what? I'm like, it's been 100 years, guys. He's an elf. He's still around. And he will get them into trouble, and he's just awesome. And I love it, getting to have that crazy. You go for the classy. I went for the completely chaotic. Hey, what are we going to do tonight? Yeah. So it was just awesome.
My favorite right now is. Oh, go ahead. Okay.
No,
yeah, my favorite one right now is a recurring character in our campaign on Microphones and Monsters. It's Manrose. He's the elevator operator for the organization that they run, or that they're a part of. And I never made him stand out or anything like that. Like, there's a lot of things behind him, but the players just latched onto him, and it just developed a relationship with this NPC that operates this magical portal dimension elevator thing. And even the listeners just absolutely love this guy, and he's just this gnome, and he's like, oh, hello, gentlemen, and just always cordial, always polite. Like, he's just the nicest little dude. And yeah, I never expected that to develop the way it did, and it's just become my favorite character now. My second favorite of like any NPC I make that's a yak folk, that I got from Storm King's Thunder. Every yak folk talks like Goofy, so it's just like, "Hey, Alistair," and like, and they just lose it. And anytime I do a yak folk, it's got to be Goofy.
Golden. It's always surprising the way that you see parties latch on to NPCs that were meant to be small or not very fleshed out or detailed, and they're like, no, that goblin, Boblin the Goblin, he's coming with us. I'll die for Boblin. That's our boy. Like, let's go.
And you're like, but you were here to meet that one.
Yeah.
Right?
No, we want Boblin.
Yep.
Exactly how it goes. I'd have to say. Oh God, I want to do like a top 10. It's so hard, but I'd have to say my favorite is probably there's a half elf, or formerly half elf, lich in my world whose name is the House, and in my world there's two big continents separated by this kind of wild frontier of like 1 million islands, and in there he runs the world's biggest casino resort, also named the House, and he will cater to your every need at no expense. I mean, I remember one of the players played a Loxodon Druid. She would said that she was a heftier girl, and so one of the attendants in the casino said, "Do you want to get off of your feet?" And he like basically snapped his fingers, and the whole team of very muscular halflings came out and just lashed their arms and made a human walking chair for her and carried her around the casino. It was like a dozen of them, and I remember by the end of this session that like one or two of them had died in the mix and had not noticed. But at the end of the session, they had to go fetch his a package for him, which ended up being his phylactery. But he, in the end, he tried to sign them into becoming employees because he treated all his employees really, really, really well, and that's because at the end, when they would die, that he would get their soul, and that's how he kind of kept getting his souls. He wasn't killing people; he was employing people well, and they stayed with him until the end. And his level of like sophistication with a little bit of like seedy crime boss nature was good. And I remember monologuing at the end that no matter which way the party went, the House always wins.
I was about to ask you if you used that line.
100%. Yeah, and he's they love him. Every time we talk about him, like everybody always wants to go back to the house. Not just because he's a little scary and exciting, but because of like you can get whatever you want and like crazy odd things happen there. But he's always just become like really really fun. He's actually my profile picture. One of my friends drew an artist named at Moochie Fox on Twitter. She drew a picture of him. That's my profile picture on Twitter at Dungeon Matter.
I will have to
I guess
comment.
I've got a couple. The first one is actually an old character that I played back when I first started playing D&D. His name is Tam Far. I was a huge ElfQuest fan, so I merged those names together and took off. He was a half-elf thief that I played for quite a few years, various iterations of games as well. And I've brought him into our the 5th edition game that I'm running, Fandalin campaign. And he is... I love running him because he's old. He has been through so much stuff. He's been through a lot of different planes of existence. So that when he has interactions with the player character, they're like, well, we're looking for this. And he goes, well, I am in acquisitions and reclamations. I may be able to... And he just goes back to his place in Waterdeep. He may have something that they're looking for. The other one that, again, kind of like what Matt said of, Boblin the Goblin, his name is actually Grinkle, and I drew him. He was in one of the modules. So there's Grinkle.
Oh my gosh!
That's so good.
And he's Grinkle, the littlest hobgoblin. He was in one of the modules where he's just sweeping the hallways of this dungeon where all the other hobgoblins were, bigger and stronger, and he was sent there by his father because, well, you're little and hopefully you'll get killed, kind of a thing. And the player characters just lobbed onto this guy of, we are keeping Grinkle safe. Nobody's hurting Grinkle. He's our little sweeper boy. And so he's going to be, he's ours, nobody's hurting my son, kind of a thing. And especially from the cleric of Talos, she's the one that was like, oh no, Grinkle is safe. We're not hurting Grinkle at all. Nobody hurt Grinkle, kind of a deal. So I had to draw him up for him.
That's so fun as a DM because then you can just put even just a hint of danger, and they're like, "Don't you touch my baby!"
Right.
It's so fun.
Mine's Turbo.
There was a meme of using, I believe, one of the characters from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think one of the female cops, but it's her holding like a baby dragon, going, "I just met him yesterday, and I will murder anyone of you." It was just beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had I don't DM, but I played in a game where it was the same kind of thing. It was like this totally random NPC, because it was a streamed game. Chat was allowed to, for, like 10,000 experience points or something, they could throw an NPC into the game, and it didn't have to be anything major, but it was a nice thing that they could get involved in. And so somebody created a goblin named Squee, and oh my god, my character was not a huge fan of him, but the rest of the party was like, we will protect Squee if our lives depend on it. And it was like, oh my god. It was just so funny how attached to him everybody was. Like, we managed to he had been isolated from his village. He wasn't allowed to go back, and he so our group set him up with stuff so he could make his own camp. And then as the campaign went on, they ended up getting him a job in town, cleaning up trash along the river. And the town agreed to give him a little hut, and it was like, oh my god, this whole character is just taken on taken off on his own, but it was just so funny how attached. And this was like a thing. Like, chat was super, super. I mean, the DM would threaten anything to Squee, and chat would be like, "Don't you dare." You know, like, it wasn't even just the cast. You know, chat was all Squee for president was like a thing. You know, it was, yeah, because it was just before the 2020 elections at that. You know, so Squee for prez, that was a whole big thing. Oh my god, it was so funny. Everybody loved him.
Did you, as a player, ever like try to get rid of him or put him in danger? I've seen groups do that where like one person doesn't like Boblin and they'll be like, "I'll kill him the second nobody's looking."
So she didn't ever try to dispose of him because she knew the rest of the party would be like, "Holy crap, what just happened?" And
But she thought about it.
But she definitely was not a fan, and she and everybody knew it. And she actually had a really good reason why she didn't like him. It wasn't just I don't like him because he's a goblin. She kind of didn't like him for that reason, but the person that she had been romantically involved with was killed in a goblin attack on the town. And so by his former tribe. And so we were like,
That beef.
yeah, so she was just like, "I don't care who you are, like, I just don't like you," you know? So she was pretty pissed with him, and that was why, even though he wasn't involved on the raid on the town, but she didn't care. He was from that tribe, so.
Did you guys ever get to hash it out?
No.
Oh, that would have been so good.
We never did because the stream came to a very abrupt end. So,
We're doing it right now. Go yell at me.
Oh Lord, it's been a while, so I don't know if I could dig that deep right now. But but yeah,
Luna, I gotta tell you, with the Discord that we're planning, I was telling them about the last time I was on. We talked to you about how your Discord chat influenced the game.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would love, I know that takes forever. That is not an immediate thing, but I'm like, I want to start from the beginning incorporating that.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things that we did. So, and I am seriously thinking about figuring out a way to do something similar with our current Discord for this channel. What we did, for people who haven't heard us talk about it before, is we had a chat RP channel that was very informal. You know, basically what we did is we threw a dice roller bot into Discord. We used Dice Maiden. I actually literally commissioned a picture of the Dice Maiden and had a t-shirt made that says "The Maiden is a fickle bitch." And she's basically like this elven woman carrying a mace with a D20 with ones on every side. It's yeah. I will dig it out sometime. But basically what it was a channel that the cast of the stream could RP in, but the community could create characters and interact with the cast. And so it wasn't officially canon what was happening in the RP channel, but every day or every week, the DM would check in with me or, you know, somebody and say, "Okay, what happened in the RP channel this week? Is there anything of note that I can then tie in to the stream?" So we had a character who did become canon. We had something called Sprited Mead, which was like regular mead, but it was made with a drop of Sprite blood in it. And so it caused you to get drunk less quickly than it did with regular mead. That became canon. So just different things like that we could then pull in to the main storyline. So, you know, things that were going to happen anyway suddenly now also had an effect on some of the characters or some of the places that had been created in this little side world that we were kind of building. And you know, when I say it was informal, it was basically, it was either play by post or just kind of whoever was available, and someone would kind of lead the group through some kind of adventure. Again, nothing formal. It wouldn't be like okay, everybody pull out all your dice. You know, it would be like we roll using the dice roller, and anything that was an 11 or above on a D20 was a success. Anything that was a 10 or below was a failure. But the how high or low the number one was like the degree of your success or your failure. So if you rolled like a 12, it was like you succeeded but barely. If you rolled a 2, it was like almost a critical failure and like really, really bad, you know. So it was just kind of something that evolved as we did it. You know, we just kind of had to come up with something, so we made it work. But it was a ton of fun, and really like brought in a lot of people that wanted to interact with us but couldn't necessarily always watch the streams. It was kind of a neat way to interact with people who only got to watch the YouTube video, after like a week or so, because we tried to keep it very spoiler free. So it was a nice way to still get to interact with people who couldn't necessarily be in chat all the time, and I loved it so much.
Trying to come up with a name for it because I was going to be like, I'm going to call it Luna, like the island Luna, and that's going to be where this happens. But there's already an island named Luna in the setting, so I'm like, I'm going to figure something out, but it's going to be in your honor because you gave me that idea, and I love that idea.
It was a lot of fun, and I would love to do something like that again. Just good times. It also for me as a player allowed me to do some really great character exploration without necessarily having to do it on stream. So I figured out a lot of things about my character during the course of doing that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to figure out just through playing on stream or just playing once a week. Like, so much so to the point that I've actually submitted a panel idea to PAX East twice about it, calling the name of the panel was going to be New Character Who Dis, and it was all about text-based RP as a means of character development. Because it really it helped so much with that. I would encourage, even if you just get a chance to do it with some of your players, like give them a place that they can RP things out together, like stuff that may not be canon, but just a place to kind of interact with each other in character. I think that's really helpful for, building rapport both between players and between characters. That was just a great thing that we sort of developed off to the side. My character taught someone who didn't know how to read common how to read, and in exchange he taught Evie, she took a level of fighter because he taught her how to be better at using her sword and things like that. And so the moments of that training happened off screen, but we worked it into the canon through doing all of that. So it was very fun.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right, let's see. We got a question from Jim the Dim. Jim says, question for all. How do you feel about collaborative world building with your players?
I love it. I've actually, this game in particular, I'm telling them point blank, if I don't have something planned and you're like, oh, I'm from this country, great, tell me about it. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, I have nothing for it. Here's the paragraph from the book about it. Tell me about your customs. Tell me about your stuff. Tell me. I'm also embracing the idea of when they walk into a bar. All right, just randomly pick one of them. Tell me something that's in this bar. What's going on? Can't pick and do anything that's going to give you a mechanical advantage or anything like that. But you described something. Give me part of it. It creates an investment from them in all of it, because a lot of times I think players, they almost get the easy side of it because they're just like, I'm just here. It's kind of a passive involvement of, I'm interacting with what you put in front of me. No, I want you to be the person devising what's in front of you. Help out. But I to me, that's the root of all role playing. The DM is not a special person. We're all players. Yeah.
I've got like I said, the homebrew world, and there's so much on the large scale that I have. And on the small scale, I like to let players kind of influence stuff. One of my players, for example, she comes from this elven kingdom, and I said, okay, where in there? Just pick a place. And eventually we picked a place called the Sable Tower. And then we started fleshing out together, okay, what do they do there? And I was like, okay, well, I think they guard the northern half. And I think that, they ride horses a lot up there. Tell me some more little things that they do there. And she would ask questions and bounce it off me, and we'd go back and forth off each other. But what was so cool about that, more than just the idea of filling in the world, was that it helped to inform her character as well and how she feels about things. She likes horses a lot. She knows how to ride horses pretty well. She's not, nervous around them or anything like that. She's also, it's a little bit more of like a rustic area. So while she's been in the big city, she's not comfortable there. And that's not information that would have happened if she didn't filled in that area with her own ideas. And then it was like she wasn't aware that she was building her character as she was helping to build the setting. And it's great because this is a place now, and we know about it, and it's real. And you get that real ownership over it too. I think player ownership in a setting is very important, and it helps to develop that character investment of why are we protecting anything? And that's definitely part of it. Be I don't want the Sable Tower to burn down. That's my home. I love that place. I have childhood memories there.
Yeah. With backgrounds and stuff like that, I a lot of. Can y'all hear me? Okay, I couldn't hear myself for a second. With the player backgrounds, I like to build around the players. Even when we're playing, it's like the world is constantly being built as we're going. It's I got things there, but constantly adding things just based on what they want to do, or sometimes hell, they even come up with a name that I didn't have a name for because they asked me, "What's this?" And I was like, "I don't know." Well, I just coming up with it, and they come up with it, so I just let it roll. Keeps the game moving.
Yeah, I had a perfect scenario last night. Was actually I was running a monthly game for some friends of mine in Supers and Sorcery, and of course we wrote the setting book, we published it and everything, but now I get to dive back into it as a DM and start to develop all this other stuff. And so one of the players, he comes from a noble family in town, and he's like, okay, I write a letter to go meet with my brother, and he and I just for a solid 15-20 minutes we're just riffing back and forth completely off the cuff, just world building it all there as they're talking about their extended family, what's going on, all that kind of stuff. So then frantically I'm like, hold on guys, and I'm just writing shit down. And then 30 minutes later he's like, oh, I go meet my sister. I'm like, oh shit, okay. And just writing all the stuff down. And then I got back home last night, and he had to give me a lift because my car is broken. And he was I was like, I have to invent a whole genealogy because of you. And he goes, I know. You're welcome. So now I get to go and build this whole web of the various noble houses in Beacon and how they interact with each other, which I'm totally down for. But it was never thought I'd have to do that. But yeah, I love, collaborative world building is the best, because I used to think I have to build everything myself as a young foolish child. And then I got older and I was like, I'm lazy. I don't want to build everything. They're going to help me make it. And it was more fun because it would be kind of like doing Eldraine, Tuesday nights. A lot of the stuff, there's some lore from the set that you can get off of Wizards website, but it unfortunately never got a plane shift article. So there's not that much about it. So a lot of the kingdoms were kind of I'm inventing stuff with my group as we go, and kind of adding to it. And it's fun because there's enough structure that they can build within it, and there's enough sandbox that we can just expand out from there. So I love collaborative world building.
When you talk about fun that way, it's players get a lot of the fun during the play. DMs get a lot of fun, watching that happen and triggering things and such. But when you're doing collaborative world building with a player, you get the sense of discovery and fun that players do when you go into this town and the buildings are on fire. Don't worry, that's normal though. when a player tells you that, you're like, what? You go crazy. Like, that sense of discovery gets lost a lot for DM. So collaborative world building is a really cool way to get that experience.
Yeah, it helps trigger new ideas for you as well.
100%.
And it makes your improv skills. You gotta adapt. Players throw something, you're like, I can work with that. Sure.
I don't have too much of that. I mean, I do with DMing and whatnot. I mean, there's players that will come into me with their backstories of where they came from, what they've done, and whatnot. But kind of as a player, I got to world build with the DM that's running our 3.5 game right now, because there were no Tabaxis in the world, but I had this great idea for and Luna has seen the photo of this guy, of Walker the Tabaxi Ranger, and I totally took the idea from Walker Texas Ranger. I love puns, and to make it even worse, I decided to name his weapons. I kind of went gaga with it. With his pistol is called Bad Romance. His rifle is called Poker Face, and the knife that he uses is called Edge of Glory. So,
very good,
right? Yeah. But he's like, okay, well, I don't really have Tabaxi. 3.5 Tabaxi wasn't a thing. I'm like, well, what about just a cat person? We don't have to use Tabaxi so much, but just that. And at the time, I was also watching a lot of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and Cad Bane had made an appearance. I'm like, he's kind of like this guy, but with like a little bit of Doc Holliday Southern gentleman type of thing, with a big, wide-brimmed hat, but his ears poke through it, and he wears a long leather overcoat, and but he's got this southern, like Georgian drawl kind of feel, and he's very Doc Holliday-ish. And then but then I threw him a curveball, and I said, but he's not originally a Tabaxi. And then he was like, wait, what? No, he was a human, and and he was a ranger, but his job was as a bounty hunter. And I said, what if he didn't do the job that he was hired for? He let somebody go, and the person that hired him, who was a high-level mage, polymorphs him into a Tabaxi. And he's like, oh, that's awesome. Perfect. And he says, so now Walker, taking kind of from the Gunslinger by Stephen King, is chasing this high-level wizard to try and turn him back into the person he's supposed to be. And the more and more, as time goes by, the more Tabaxi, the more cat person he becomes. And so he starts, growling at people. He starts, if he gets angry, he'll hiss at somebody, and he'll go, oh, I'm sorry about that. I did not mean to hiss at you. Yeah, and he's very much this, trying not to become what he doesn't want to be. And so Chris, our DM, created this whole southern section of this continent that used to be kind of a wasteland, and that's now where the cat people have come and built their society, and they're very Jamaican-esque is the way that he's running them. So he's taking that kind of accents and mannerisms and whatever with these cat folk that are now in his world.
Nice. Did
Walker end up finding that wizard?
We are in the process of tracking him down. We've gone back to the Southlands now, where all these Tabaxi are, and found out that when he left, it was quite a few years ago, and now he's coming back. He's found out that there are they're high-class Tabaxi, which are actually Rakshasas, and then there's the lower-class Tabaxi, which are actual Tabaxi. And the higher ones have gotten dominion over the low-class Tabaxis, and there's There's badges that you have to get through different cities down in the south now, rather than just being able to pass freely. And it sounds like they are basically creating a whole other society and temple system in this old necropolis that my party is going towards. So it should be interesting to see where it goes.
Cool.
I'm liking the other thing that I've been embracing is the DM just, I'm going to say yes. You know, hey, I want to do yes.
Yes, and
Yes,
yeah.
and
I'm not saying it's going to succeed. You know, they like all the time in combat, they'll be like, I want to try and do this thing. And I'm like,
you can try.
okay, yeah, you can roll. I don't even know if there's a roll high enough. Roll it and I'll figure it out once I see the number.
Yep.
But I mean, I think that's kind of our job ultimately. I didn't used to think that way. I used to be a lot more. I was very much the DM versus the players, which I get. It gets a bad rap, but there is some fun to that style as well. But now, yeah, I want to enjoy the story more than the combat.
Mm-hmm.
I actually kind of hate 5th ed combat. It just, my God, it goes on forever.
Somebody in the chat said that the yes and has its limits, and I agree with that.
Yeah,
it does.
But I do think it's a fun practice to try to do it when you can. When you know, okay, if somebody wants to flap their arms and try to fly, yes and okay, yeah, you know what? You think you get off the ground for like an inch. Nobody else sees it, but you think you did.
Right.
Obviously, you're not gonna let them fly across a canyon or something like that.
Mhm.
But once it really hurt, you know, and if you're kind of giving them a moment, you're giving them a shot, and you're embracing the idea that in these role-playing games, anything is possible. So I think yes and also encourages kind of the partnership between DMs and players, which again is the opposite of the kind of DM versus the players idea.
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of depends on your style and what's fun for you and your group. I mean, some groups are really love DM versus the player. Be like, we will just, you know, we're coming for you next week, Mark, or something like that, you know.
You know, and that's where I say it gets a bad rap. Everybody's, oh my God, well, you're just trying to kill them. I'm like, you're missing the point that if I want to just kill them, I can just kill them. There's
it's easy.
That's not the point of DM versus player.
Here's the nightmare story I have about DM versus player is that I'm very I root for my players like crazy, even though I make them like cry and I make them angry at each other and angry at me. That's all from love, of course. But we went to a convention one time, me and my group, and I got to play with them in this interesting kind of competitive D&D table setup where there was like 2 hours. There was a set adventure. Every group at every table had one DM, and all of the parties were different types of paladins. And we all played together to try to find these griffin eggs, and there was a grid. We all went through it, and the goal was to get as many of these griffin eggs as you can. And when 2 hours went up, the adventuring party that got the most would get like actual board game prizes and stuff. It was really cool concept. Yeah, awesome. And we sat down with this guy who we'd never met before, and we call him Neck Rubber because it's all he would do the whole time. But he had the most bizarre complex of DM versus player that I'd ever seen. I would try to do something that he would say was possible for him a minute before, and then would say, no, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that for anybody else. Now, that's rules argument stuff. You know, that stuff happens. But he genuinely, he would, like, hurt, like, you know, maybe we did a hit with a smite. Okay. He'd be like, no, but you don't kill him. He's tough. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And then shortly after, he'd like, he hits you for like a billion damage, and he'd be like, ha, now you're dead. And he would laugh at players, ha, now you're dead. And I could not fathom what made him actually get enjoyment. Like, why was this the environment that he would bring that out in, and was clearly not on the same wavelength with us. It was actually interesting because my fiance was at the table at the time, and her character got hit for a bunch like that. He laughed, ha, now you're dead. And she looked at the rest of us. She's like, guys, I'm sorry. Like, I died. I'll go wait in the lobby. And I was like, no, don't you worry. And I laid on hands her, so she had to stay and suffer with the rest of us. She still doesn't forgive me about that, but we all remember neck rubber as just the worst case of DM versus player, and I think that you just need to get on the same wavelength with your DM and party, whatever you do.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Next question that we got is, scroll up a little bit. Okay. From Vertrox Nightblood, do you ever do anything special for real life holidays and special events, such as players' birthdays in session, or any fun stories from doing that?
I did Frosty the Snow Lich.
Frosty the Snow Lich?
I know I wrote a Christmas themed one shot called The Light of Yule that's on DM's Guild. And I had never had a chance to actually run it with anyone. And I finally ran it this past Christmas season with my fiance, her brother, her sister, and unfortunately now her husband who has passed. And it was a really good time. You know, they all used these Christmas themed subclasses I had made. It was really cheesy, really stupid, incredibly over the top. And it was definitely really fun. I think it's just I've never really done anything D&D related or RPG related around holiday, just because it's usually family time, and I'm usually with my family during that. And so we've never, really gotten together to do, special themed ones like that. I'd like to at some point, maybe once things calm down and get to be back to somewhat more stable, but it's usually family time. So D&D usually goes away for a couple weeks, and you play lots of Jeopardy and drink lots of eggnog and regret life choices as you sit on the couch very bloated. So, unless you're my brother and you drink 2 glasses of eggnog and then 2 glasses of cider and then realize you made a mistake.
The only thing I ever did was right after Nightmare Before Christmas came out, we did a parody. But that was the one and only time I did anything. I agree with Cam. I generally say once the holidays hit, we're never going to align our schedules, especially now as adults. When you were in high school, well, you were all off of school at the same time. You were this, and parents didn't get a month off, and so you could still play. But now I'm just like, you be with your kids, you be with your spouses, whatever, and we'll be here the second week of January. So
I've made a ton of holiday themed subclasses and stuff for folks to use over the holidays. I did one I'm very proud of, the Great Gobbler Warlock Patron, which is a giant celestial turkey that you can have as a Warlock patron. The cover art's great. Or I did this series of 6 Christmas subclasses where it was Nutcracker Legionnaire Fighter, where you turn into a nutcracker over the course of the game. Sugar Plum Fairy Scout, and the great thing was that my artist friends that did it went so hard on the art to make this very serious, very grizzled looking Sugar Plum Fairy Scout, and he looks so epic. But then you just see his little Sugar Plum Fairy companion just hoo-yah! With a hammer next to him. You're like, damn, that's great. I did an Oath of Cheer Paladin, Spirit of Yule Warlock Patron, Gingerbread Rogue, where you get little gingerbread men that help you stab people. And
I hope with peppermint sticks.
Yes, with peppermint daggers, with actual peppermint daggers. And then Circle of the North Pole Druid, and those are all really fun.
Nice.
So I've made tons of holiday themed stuff, but I have never done a full holiday game now.
Somebody do a 12 Days of Christmas subclass.
Oh my god! Oh, that would be so good. That's a good story.
That's what my mind was just starting to go through, and I'm like, oh, the ring.
Yeah, you got a few months to set that up.
Yeah,
put that on the calendar.
Yeah, tag me in.
The Halloween
I've had a couple of small Christmas one shots. One where there was this deranged dwarf in a sled. He was like running people down. I once had a frost giant named the Saint of Claus who had 12. He had 12 gnolls with him. That one had a big red nose, and they like raided this fortress. And then my most recent and probably favorite one that I had done was I created a holiday called Penumbra Night in my homebrew setting, Palasia, and it's essentially where it's very Halloween inspired, where the veil is the thinnest between the Feywild and the Shadowfell and the material plane, and so you have this night where people dress up in costumes and they think it's just a legend, but sometimes things cross over and it's wild. You'll see these wondrous fake creatures that are these sprites that will prank people and full of mischief, and you'll have these terrifying shadow creatures come out as well, and people will put sweets outside of their door, and it's to distract the Fae, and it's to feed the Fel, the shadow creatures. Everyone just treats this like tradition, but what I love about doing a one shot on that is it's the night where everyone's celebrating and the adventuring party starts to see the real things that are coming through, and that was always just such a good time.
We did a Christmas special this past Christmas for the show, and Man Rose, my favorite NPC that I said earlier.
Such a good name.
Love that, yeah.
He shut the elevator down basically and said that they were stuck, and since they were there, he wanted to play a game. So they played in character with me in character as the NPC. We played Cyberpunk Red in a D&D world. Because the library is interdimensional stuff like multiverse. Yeah. So he had to explain Santa Claus and Christmas to him and everything. But they ended up playing in a campaign, and they had to stop Santa Corp. Santa Corp was stealing children. They had to figure out why they were stealing children and rescue them and everything. And it was just a lot of fun. We actually just released the Man Rose Uncut, where we left in where we broke character constantly throughout it, because the way I edited it was like they stayed in character the entire time playing other characters. So that was a fun just holiday event.
Cool.
Thinking of Santa Claus or Santabot from Futurama. The evil killer, yeah.
That's funny. We did a holiday themed episode of our 50 Shades of Crimson Pathfinder game on our stream, and it was basically like this what was the holiday? The holiday was Merry Mead. We kept instead changing it around and calling it Merry Meadmas, like the holiday was Meadmas and we were saying Merry Meadmas, but no, the holiday was supposed to be Merry Mead. And there was like this play that we got roped into helping out with, like it was this total side thing from the normal game, and and because all of our characters got like roped into doing it, everybody was talking in this like super flat affect stage fright type voice, and it was like, my character, I point over that way. It was so fun though. It was a really good one.
Please tell me your bard was still up there like, but then I will.
Probably would have if we had a bard, but our paladin was super into it.
Okay.
As a DM, I'm cursed with a bard in both of my campaigns that I run, and they're both the bane of my existence.
Oh no!
I just want to find one player to play a bard who will actually sing and do in character.
I have that player.
I would. I would.
Oh my god, I would love them.
My friend Chad.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, my friend
If you
Chad
ever see
is playing
Dungeon Run,
yeah, my friend Chad is playing a high elf bard, and he's actually a musician and singer. So, especially when we were playing online, he would bring his guitar out and play and sing, and that's how he would cast his bardic inspiration. which was just perfect. Well, the one time that we actually got to play in person, the very first game we got together, he brought his guitar with and was doing that. So it worked out pretty well. It's pretty funny when he gets a chance to do it.
With the dungeon run, which is probably my favorite of the professional actor games, but Katie Michaels plays a gnome bard. She literally writes songs as things happen and will suddenly be singing them, and it's just like, how did you? But her training is improv.
That's wild. There's a gnome in one of my campaigns. His name is Bobby Nog, Bartholomew Bellywick, Bellybub, or something. Like, he has like 5 B's, and I can't ever do it. But he's a gnome. He's a multi-class bard and Steam Wright's a homebrew class that I made. But he has a mechanical companion named Troublemaker, who is an automaton, who is essentially a one-man band who accompanies him. But he, as a bard, he will do that. He will write limericks and small song verses about things either during the session or in between sessions, and he will bring them up later. And he does this to recount the adventures and the tales that they do. And he'll straight up sing them at the table, and it blows me away. He's not like a trained singer or anything, and he'll just start going into it. And I can't help but give him inspiration every time because he puts in so much extra effort.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes, if you didn't give them inspiration, the other players should riot. Wow.
That's the actual bardic inspiration, then, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we've hit the end of our second hour, so we need to start wrapping it up. But what I would like to have everybody do is we'll go around again. Just remind us of who you are and where people can find you on social media. And if you have anything that you want to promote or let people know you have coming up or anything like that, feel free. If we didn't get to your question, what I usually do is tomorrow on Twitter, I will post them from the Shared Experience Twitter at SharedEXPRPG. And I will tag all of tonight's guests so people can answer questions. And if you're in chat and you want to answer the questions too, absolutely feel free. Ben, I see you. Oh, heck, I missed the window. You didn't miss the window. We just ended up with a lot of questions in the second half. So, so unfortunately, we didn't have time to get to yours. But I will definitely be dropping them all on Twitter, so if people want to take a look at those, you can. We are going to go in the reverse order this time. So, Tom, we're going to start with you.
All right, yeah, my name is Tom Nelson. I go as a Midwest Miniature Guy on all the different social media apps out there. Pretty much you can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Midwest Mini Guy. I can't put miniature in the entire title. But I paint miniatures for gamers, collectors, and role-playing games, and hopefully some miniature companies at some point in time. That'd be fun to do again. So, yeah, I'm an avid gamer and role player. And if you are in the Twin Cities area of Minneapolis, St. Paul, my band is actually going to be playing at the Dubliner Pub next Saturday night. If you like Irish punk rock, come out and see us.
Awesome. That sounds like super fun, and I'm sad I'm not out in that direction. So, well, thank you for coming on and hanging out. It's always a pleasure to get to chat.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Matt, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, my name's Matt Arter. I am at Dungeon Matter on Twitter. Feel free to follow me, say hi on there. I'm always down to talk about anything RPG related. I also publish 5th edition D&D player class options on DM's Guild. You can search up my name on there, Matthew Arter. Take a look through there. That's about it.
Awesome. Well, it was great to get to have you on. It's always nice to put a face to a Twitter handle, and hopefully we'll get to have you back again sometime.
That'd be great.
Heath.
Heath Dobson. I'm the DM for the upcoming Into the Rage, a Siva Vodari campaign. You can find me on Twitter at Dagda's Cauldron. Any I's that I say are my opinions, any we's or from the company. I do want to give a shout out to my players, Caleb, Stefan, Leah, Kenny, and Andrew Paj. And then my producer, Justin. You guys are killing it, and I cannot wait for us to go public, guys. It's going to be great. And also to a new follower, I think, or a new potential player for my home game stuff is Rick's. I really hope things can work out with that. So, anyway,
Yay.
thank you.
Awesome. I am looking forward to all of your upcoming stuff. I can't wait for you to start getting it out. I know it's going to be awesome.
Yes.
Cam.
Okay, I'll try and go quick. So, Cam Day, guys, at Daylight Pub 1066 on the Twitters and the other social medias. Things you can see that I'm working on right now. I just released today the last book in my Heroic Paragon Epic series. It's a conversion of the old Heroic Paragon Epic system from 4E to 5E, sort of clumped into Primal, Arcane, Martial, and Divine classes. So if you want to grab those and bring some of that great 4E wildness to your game for 5E, you can do that now. Otherwise, we are working on wrapping up production on Comets and Cockpits, our 2-book 5E Space Junker Fantasy setting books, which will hopefully be coming out hopefully in December. And then otherwise, we are beginning production on our upcoming setting, Spellpunk Solar and Sunder, which Luna is in that server and gets to see all the shenanigans we're working on, which is going to be a post-apocalyptic solar hydropunk setting with lots of alchemy and science and stuff. So
I can't wait to play test that. I'm so excited.
I think I can fit more stuff into my schedule. I think I can if I tweak it.
Yeah, you just have to like start canceling your classes and stuff in the fall and
yeah. I'll just say sorry guys, I'm not teaching this year.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing.
But I would still like to be paid.
Yes.
Oh, one other thing quick, in the Twitch stream, I did post a link to get you guys a free copy of the PDF of Supers and Sorcery, which was our first setting book, which is a 5e comic book flavored setting set in the mega city of Beacon. Rather than us trying to reinvent the wheel and make superheroes work for 5e, we just said we're just going to give comic book flavor and not try and make another Mutants and Masterminds, because Mutants and Masterminds is terrible. And it's just too freaking clunky. So if you guys want to get a free copy of the PDF, it is in the Twitch chat.
Yes, it is. Yep. Posted right there, the Drive-Thru RPG link. Cam, thanks so much for coming to hang out again.
Thank you.
I know we've got to plan a time to get together and talk shop. Adam.
Yeah, I'm Adam Culbertson, DM over at Microphones and Monsters. It's a Cthulhu Mythos campaign and for D&D 5e, and we have 30-minute episodes, like 30 to 45 minutes. Try and keep it short, easy to binge. We're actually releasing season 3, premiering August 2nd. We're expanding Microphones and Monsters as a brand to do more productions. We're acquiring an audio drama and continuing its seasons as we go, working on a spin-off series that's coming out after it takes place in season 3. Hopefully before the end of the year, that's going to start releasing. We're already recording. And I'm playing in a series that just started this month called Ethereal Embrace. And you could go to mikesandmonsters.com for all of Mikes and Monsters stuff, and etherealembracepodcast.com for that other show run by a Fool's Quest.
Awesome. That sounds like you've got a lot coming up. Oh, yeah.
We're also going to be, if you're in the Charlotte area, we're going to be at Mad Monster Expo September 3rd through the 5th. We're going to have a table, so if you're in the area, you can come by, see us, and get some swag and just talk to us.
Well, now I'm jealous of everyone in that area. I would like to go to that as well. But unfortunately, I'm not in that area either. So, bummer. Well, thank you all so much. This was great. This was a lot of fun conversation, and I'm really glad that you all got to come and hang out. I am Gamer Mom Luna. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook under the name of Gamer Mom Luna. And this is Shared Experience. We have 3 streams a week right now. We've got Tales from the Tavern here every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then we've got our Star Wars Edge of the Empire game Ripples in the Gray, which is on Tuesday nights, also at 8 p.m. Eastern. And on Wednesdays, we have our Pathfinder First Edition game, 50 Shades of Crimson. We really like colors here, in case you weren't sure. And those are all, I'm not going to say anything about whether or not they're happening this week, because every time I do, it jinxes it. So those are when they're scheduled. And let's see what else. Oh, we're gonna have a Aether and Steamworks one-shot coming up in a couple of weeks. If you missed the first time we got to host a one-shot of that system here before, please come by and check that out. We've got Apache1222, who is brand new to the TTRPG scene. This will be his first ever TTRPG game, is going to be joining us in the player's seat, so that's exciting for him. And it's a really fun kind of steampunky setting. If you're not familiar with it, it was written by Ty Burris, who's been on the stream a couple of times before, and a really, really neat system. I am excited. I'm looking forward to it. So swing by and check that out. Details will be posted on Twitter as we finalize them. I think that's everything that I need to talk about tonight. So we are going to go raid our friends over at Total Party Chill, who are actually in the middle of a session 0. They are streaming their session 0, which I think is really cool. So if you're interested in anything like that, stick around, check them out, and we will catch you all next week. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, Luna.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.